Have you ever met a man who seems to have everything together on the surface? He holds down a job, he goes out, he laughs, he functions. But the moment life asks something real of him, a deeper commitment, a serious decision, a difficult conversation, he vanishes. Not physically, emotionally. He checks out, deflects, postpones, disappears. This pattern has a name in psychology. It's called emotional immaturity, and it's far more common than most men would ever admit. Today, we're going to talk about 6 signs that a man is stuck in what psychologists refer to as the man-child pattern, someone who looks like an adult on the outside, but operates from a place of emotional avoidance on the inside. And here's the thing, this isn't about judging anyone. This is about recognizing patterns that are quietly keeping men from building the life they actually want. So if something in this video hits close to home, good. That discomfort is exactly where growth begins. Sign 1. You avoid responsibilities that would make you grow. There's a very specific kind of avoidance that defines emotional immaturity. It's not laziness in the traditional sense. The man-child often works. He pays his bills. He does what's necessary, but he carefully, almost surgically, avoids any responsibility that would push him to the next level. He doesn't want to lead. He doesn't want to commit. He doesn't want to take the next step, whether that's in a relationship, a career, or his own personal development. And the reason isn't comfort. The real reason is fear. Because here's what taking on real responsibility means. If you step up and you fail, you can no longer blame anyone else. The moment you own something, truly own it, you become accountable for the outcome. And for someone who has spent years hiding from their own insecurities, that level of exposure is terrifying. You've probably heard men say things like, "I'm fine where I am. Relationships just complicate things. I don't need more." And sometimes that's true. But more often, that kind of statement is armor. It's a way of making avoidance sound like wisdom. And here's what makes this pattern so dangerous psychologically. Every time you avoid a responsibility that would have made you grow, your brain reinforces the belief that you're not ready, you're not capable, you're not enough. And over time, that belief doesn't just feel like a thought. It starts to feel like your identity. Sign 2. You choose immediate pleasure over long-term progress. This one is quieter, harder to spot, but it might be the most destructive sign on this list. The man-child is wired for instant gratification, constant entertainment, impulse purchases, digital escapism, surface-level relationships that feel exciting for a moment but never go anywhere deep. And again, the problem isn't enjoying life. The problem is using pleasure as anesthesia. When something makes you uncomfortable, you distract yourself. When something hurts, you avoid it. When something requires discipline and patience, you postpone it indefinitely. And what happens over time is that your brain becomes addicted to quick stimulation. Anything that requires patience, building a business, developing a skill, maintaining a relationship through its difficult seasons, begins to feel unbearable, boring, not worth it. Ask yourself this honestly. Have you ever genuinely wanted to change something about your life, but kept telling yourself you'd start tomorrow, next week, after the holidays? That's not a lack of capability. That's a lack of tolerance for discomfort. And discomfort, whether you like it or not, is the price of growth. There is no way around it. There is only through it. Sign 3. You play the victim when things go wrong. This is one of the most revealing signs and one of the most difficult to confront. When something in the life of an emotionally immature man falls apart, his first instinct is rarely to ask, "What role did I play in this?" Instead, the search begins for an external explanation. The partner, the boss, the economy, bad luck, the system. Someone or something out there is always responsible. And there's a psychological reason for this that runs deeper than simple selfishness. Accepting responsibility activates something painful, the possibility that you need to change. And change requires effort, real effort, the kind that forces you to sit with discomfort and keep going anyway. So staying in victim mode feels safer. You feel innocent. You feel justified. But here's the brutal truth. As long as you see yourself as a victim of your circumstances, you surrender all your power. Because if everything is someone else's fault, then nothing is within your control. And if nothing is within your control, you never have to do the hard work of actually changing. That mindset keeps a man exceptionally small, not because he lacks intelligence or potential, but because he's chosen. The comfort of innocence over the power of accountability. Sign 4, you fear deep commitment. And this isn't just about romantic relationships, though that's where it shows up most visibly. This fear of commitment extends to projects, goals, and major life decisions. Commitment is frightening for someone who fears growing up because committing to something means closing other doors. And the man-child wants to keep every door open, just in case something better comes along, just in case he changes his mind, just in case he makes the wrong choice. This can look like freedom from the outside, but it's actually a prison. Because here's what happens when you refuse to commit to anything deeply. You never build anything real. Relationships stay shallow because depth requires staying through the hard parts. Goals stay as intentions because following through means tolerating failure. Life itself becomes provisional, always temporary, always one foot out the door, and the years pass. Think about the things that matter most to you, the relationships, the work, the version of yourself you want to become. None of those things are built in moments of excitement. They're built in moments when the excitement is gone and you show up anyway. That's what commitment actually is. And without it, nothing lasting gets created. Sign 5. You avoid difficult conversations. This one is critical. When conflict arises, the man-child disappears, or goes on the defensive immediately, or makes a joke to break the tension, or simply pretends the problem doesn't exist until it somehow goes away on its own. Why? Because having a genuinely difficult conversation requires emotional maturity. It requires the ability to sit in tension without shutting down. It requires listening to criticism without becoming defensive. It requires regulating your own emotions while someone else is expressing theirs. And if you never learned how to do that, if no one taught you how to handle hard emotions when you were young, then avoidance becomes your default strategy. It feels like the only option. But every conversation you avoid creates distance in your relationship, in your family, at work. The people around you slowly stop bringing things to you because they know it won't go anywhere productive. And over time, that isolation compounds, not because people left, but because you were never truly present to begin with. The ability to stay in a hard conversation, to not run, not deflect, not shut down, is one of the most powerful things a man can develop. It's where real trust is built. It's where real intimacy lives. Sign 6. You confuse freedom with not needing anyone. This is the most subtle sign on this list, the most dangerous, because it doesn't look like weakness, it looks like strength. Many emotionally immature men describe themselves as independent. I don't need anyone. I handle things on my own. I don't want to depend on someone else. And on the surface, that sounds admirable, self-sufficient, strong. But there's a crucial difference between healthy autonomy and emotional evasion. True maturity, real emotional strength, is not threatened by depending on others. A genuinely mature man can ask for help without feeling diminished. He can show vulnerability without feeling exposed. He can let someone matter to him without feeling like he's lost control. The man-child can't do that, because depending on someone means trusting them, and trusting someone means they have the power to hurt you. So the safest strategy emotionally is to keep everyone at arm's length. If no one gets too close, no one can cause real damage. But that shield doesn't just block pain, it blocks everything real: connection, intimacy, partnership, the feeling of being truly known by someone and choosing to stay anyway. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Growing up means accepting that you will need people, and that people will need you. That's not a loss of freedom. That's the foundation of a meaningful life. So why does this pattern develop in the first place? It's rarely a character flaw. More often, it's a wound. There are 3 roots that come up again and again. First, overprotection in childhood. When a boy is never allowed to fail, he never learns that he can survive failure. Second, the absence of a mature male role model. When there's no example of what adult responsibility actually looks like, it's hard to know where to aim. And third, early experiences of failure that were never processed. When a young person tries, fails, and is left alone with that pain, the mind draws a conclusion. Trying is dangerous. When growing up becomes associated with pain, the mind makes a rational, if destructive, decision to stop growing. And that decision, repeated thousands of times over the years, becomes a lifestyle. But here's what matters most. This pattern is not permanent. It is not destiny. Maturity is not a function of age. It is a function of decision. So how do you actually change? First, accept that growth is going to be uncomfortable. Stop trying to find a way to make it painless. There isn't one. Discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is changing. Second, start with small, consistent responsibilities. Make a promise to yourself and keep it. Finish what you start. When you make a mistake, own it without immediately explaining it away. These small acts of accountability are the foundation everything else is built on. Third, seek out difficult conversations instead of avoiding them. Not to create conflict, but to practice being present when it's hard. That's where emotional muscle is built. Fourth, choose one real commitment, just one, and stay in it, especially when the initial excitement fades, because maturity isn't about how you show up when things feel good. It's about how you show up when they don't. A child seeks security, man seeks growth, and growth always involves uncertainty. That's not a bug in the system. That's how the system works. If you recognized yourself in several of these signs, that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're at a turning point. The fear of growing up is deeply human, but staying there, that's a choice. The question isn't whether you're afraid. Every man who has ever built something real was afraid. The question is whether you're going to let that fear make your decisions for you. Because every year you postpone becoming who you're capable of being, the gap between who you are and who you could be gets wider. And that gap, that distance, hurts more than any responsibility ever would. Growing up isn't about losing your freedom. It's about finally having real power over your own life. And that's something only an adult can do.